Hi Math 5-4 kiddos. This is lesson 103 and it is scheduled for March 30th. I wrote a reminder on here. We're going to be doing fractions. So here's a quick reminder of our numerator and denominator in fractions. Our numerator is the top number. Our denominator is the bottom number. And I wrote the word down beside it. Remember, when we're looking for our denominator, we look down. Denominator starts with D, down starts with D, so denominator, down. So today I have some of our whole fractions laid out, and I'm gonna kind of look around at them and move the camera around. You see, I have two halves making a whole, and then I have one, which makes a whole. Over here, I have 1, 2, 3 thirds making one whole. And over here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fifths making one whole. And down here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sixths making one whole. Now, if you notice, if I write those fractions down on my sheet of paper, let me get my sheet of paper back in here. Okay. If I write those fractions for us down on my sheet of paper, and I look at my halves to start with, I had 2 halves. So I had 2 over 2. Because I had 2 of the 1/2 pieces. And then I had 3 out of the 3 1/3 pieces to make a whole. And then I had my 1/5 pieces. We said I had 5 out of the 5 pieces to make a whole. And then I had a total of 6 out of 6 pieces to make a whole, okay? So if you notice, I wrote those down. We did the fraction and then I wrote those down. If you notice anything about these fractions, it is that the numerator and the denominator are the same. Any fraction that has the same numerator and same denominator all equals one whole, which is what we saw. We saw 2 pieces of the halves make a whole, 3 pieces of the 1/3 pieces make a whole, 5 pieces out of the 1/5 pieces make a whole, and 6 pieces out of the 1/6 piece make a whole. So as a rule, any fraction that has the same numerator, remember that's the top number, and denominator, remember that's the bottom number, is equal to 1, or 1 whole. That's a fraction rule, okay? We're gonna learn some other fraction rules also. Another fraction rule that we have today is that if we take and look at the fraction 1/2, okay? And then if I want to look at some equal fractions, and I pull this one into view, let me scoot up a little bit so you can see better. Okay, so I have 3/6 and I have 1/2. So we could say that 3/6 equals 1/2. We've seen that before when we did fraction work. So if I write that down on my paper, sorry, there's so much movement today on the video. So 3/6 is equal to 1/2 because we saw that with our fraction pieces. Now, let me see if I can find any others that are equal to 1/2. If I have my 4th pieces and I bring them out and I need 2 of my 1/4 pieces to equal 1/2. So if I write that down, I have 2/4 is also equal to 1/2. I'll write it up here. We said 1/2 is equal to 2/4. We said 3/6, that was the one I just did, is equal to 1/2. And if I could keep going, I have plenty of fraction pieces, but I'll do one more quick example of, I can get them apart. They're magnetic, so they're sticking together for me. Oof, yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's my 1/2, and I have 1/10 pieces. So I'm gonna see how many does it take for me to get to 1/2. And there's 3, here's 4, and here's 5. So it takes me 5/10 to equal 1/2. So if I write that down on here, 5/10 equals 1/2 also. So if we look at these fractions that are equal to 1/2, we can see another fraction rule. If we look at the numerator, which is the top number, is exactly half of the denominator for each of these. 5 is half of 10, 3 is half of 6, 2 is half of 4. So in any of these, they're all equal to 1/2. So another fraction rule is, make sure I'm getting it on the screen for you, if the numerator is half of the denominator, the fraction equals 1/2. Okay, so another example, if I took the fraction and I made my denominator 12, and if I wanted to see what was equal to 1/2, half of 12 is 6. If I made my denominator 20 and I wanted to make it equal to 1/2, I'd say half of 20 is 10. So any fraction where the numerator is half of the denominator, the fraction will equal 1/2. So you can compare fractions using that information. For example, if I was to compare 5/8 and compare to 1/2, okay, remember when we compare, our answers are less than, greater than, or equal to. So 5/8. So I think through and go, okay, what would this look like if it was a half? If it was a half, if it was equal to 1/2, it would say the denominator would be 8 and the numerator would be half of that, which would be 4. Okay, so if it was equal to 1/2, it would be 4/8, but it's not. It's greater than 1/2. 1/2 would equal 4/8. So I know that 5/8 is greater than 1/2 to compare my fractions. Okay, and so another one that I can compare would be if I took 9/20 and compared that to 1/2. So I look at this fraction and say, okay, if it was going to be 1/2, it would be, my denominator would stay 20 and my numerator would have to be half of that because of my rule. So that would be 10. So 9 is less than 10. So 9/20 is less, oh, I wrote it the wrong way, less than 1/2. Okay, so that's how I can compare my numbers. I can also use that to determine how to round a mixed number. Okay, so if I have a mixed number of, let me flip over my page and get clean paper so it'll make more sense there. Okay, so if my mixed number, and I'm supposed to round to the nearest whole number. That's my instructions, okay? And I'm given a mixed number, and let's see, I'm given 6 7/7 as a mixed number. Well, I know if I put that on my number line, okay, I know my whole number is 6, so it's gonna fall, but it hasn't made it all the way to 7 yet, so it's gonna fall somewhere between 6 and 7. I just can visualize that if I need to. I know it goes somewhere in there. And so I could make 10 tick marks if I wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whoop, too many. 10. And then I would count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if this is my point of 6 7/10, I could look at it and see on a number line that it is closer to 7 than it is to 6. Okay, that's one way to do it. That's one possibility. And in that case, I would round it to 7. That's one way to work the problem. Another way to work it would be to take 6 7/10 and look at this fraction and compare it to 1/2. Because remember, when you round, if it's at a half or greater, it would round up. Because the halfway point is right in here. That's your half point. So if it's greater, it's going to round up. So I can look at this fraction and say, okay, as a 10th, what is equal to 1/2 of a fraction equal to 1/2 with a denominator of 10? And so if my denominator is 10, it would have to be 5/10. So 7 is greater than 5/10. So it would be greater than 6. It'd be greater than halfway, greater than 6 1/2. So it will round up to 7. So that's two different ways to do it. You can do it the number line way, or you can look at it and use the half rule on your fraction and know that if this is greater than half, then the fraction will round up to the next number, to the next whole number. Okay? So you can use either way to get there. And so your practice problems are on page 481, and it's A through G. And so if you'll do those and have your parents check them, and this is the last lesson for Monday, March 30th. There will be 3 lessons for Thursday. What will that be? April 2nd, I believe. So I will talk to you then. Bye, guys.